Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in the scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and number one, he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's giving away? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluations so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and this is the first day of 5 consecutive days of Bears coverage. We'll take you from Monday to Friday with fresh programming. All you got to do is subscribe to the network, and you will get alerts on your devices about our live shows. And also, you can subscribe to our audio podcast. If you're an audio podcast guy, you can listen to the shows on the road, at work, wherever you want. While you're working out. Let's see if Greg Gabriel worked out this morning. Greg, how are you, my friend?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't work out today.
But you've been up since 4:30.
Yeah, well, I had reports to write, grocery shopping to do, all that other shit, you know. The honey-do list.
The honey-do list, yes. I'm quite familiar with the honey-do list. Greg, Victory Monday, how sweet is it that all of the naysayers...
3 in a row.
Yeah, I saw your tweet yesterday. Where are all the naysayers? Where the hell did they go?
No, they were. I was shocked at how many. Well, they haven't played anybody yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I said to one guy, "Look, you only can play who you're scheduled to play."
Mm-hmm.
And look at the way they're beating the last 3 wins in a row. None of them are close. They're blowing all these people out.
That's right. An average of 20-some points over the last 2 games.
Yeah,
a little less than that.
Come on. Give me a freaking break here. They're playing good football. Sluice uses the word complementary football. I guess that's a good way to describe it. And part of it is that the turnovers they create, they're turning into offensive points, which is a good thing. You got to do that. So throw out the first defensive drive and the first 2 offensive drives, and that game is pretty much an A+ game, except for Caleb's horrible throw to DJ, where he just he floated it, put too much air under the ball instead of driving it. But that's how you learn. You know, he's going to see that. He's going to see how open he was when he watches the tape, and you know he's going to be hard on himself, and you'll never see him do that again. You'll see him drive the ball the next time they do that. But how about this? One thing I haven't seen, the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all we heard about was how horrible the play calling is. Freaking play calling's been pretty damn good the last 3 weeks, and nobody says, boy, play calling's really good.
I said it, but nobody heard it.
Like that play to Kmet. That was a nice play. In fact, actually, somebody bitched right on Twitter. They have like the 3rd and a foot and a half. And then they throw the deep ball that gets intercepted. He goes, "They should have gone for the first down." I said, "No, they shouldn't." That was a great call for that play because they would have, where they were on the field, they were going for it on 4th down.
Yeah. Very creative play by Shane Waldron. Cole Kmet said that he brought it with him from Seattle. They ran it a time or two in Seattle, and it was called at a perfect time. And it was set up by the previous play, which was a similar alignment, a similar look, and it just really was a great knock-out punch of a play call by Shane Waldron. Let's talk about Shane. Stacey Dales reported that for the first couple of games of the season, Shane had not scripted out the first 15 plays, which is sort of the custom now. Not every offensive coordinator does it, but he had not. And in the players' meeting, the players suggested that he did. Do you think that has helped the Bears' offense, or at the very least helped Caleb Williams settle into the game?
Well, it could, but when you script the plays, you don't always follow the script exactly because the down and distance can be different. So you really, when you got a script, you got a really more of a group of plays that are within that the same area. But the whole purpose of the scripting is to really see how the defense reacts to certain things. You know, how they're going to react to a shift, how they're going to react to motion, how they're going to react to the way they ran a certain route, so they can use that stuff later in the game. So I think from that standpoint, it can help set up things for the rest of the game. And a lot of times, if you work hard, if you practice that script, and a lot of teams do practice the script on Friday, then it makes plays go a little bit smoother when you start the game. Now, that's the one thing you could say negative about the Bears is they're still starting. Their first drive's always a little bit of a clunker. Not last week. If I recall, they moved the ball pretty good last week, but first two drives this week were a little bit of a clunker, and Jacksonville had a good one. But I think I honestly believe this. You know, the Bears went there. They left late Monday afternoon, got into England Tuesday morning. So they were there for a good number of days before the game and got acclimated. Jacksonville left Thursday. Now, they're used to doing this, but still, they had to leave like 5 hours later than anticipated, got in 4 or 5 hours later than anticipated.
Because of the storm.
That game less than 48 hours after they landed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that had a little bit to do with them running out of gas. And being tired. Am I throwing darts at the wall and guessing? Yeah. But it makes sense to me, so I'll hold on to it.
Yeah, and there was one report that one of the Bears players, I don't know who it was, who allegedly said that they started to sense the Jaguars quitting towards the end of the game, and just, it was futile. And that says something really bad about the coaching over there. And we'll talk more about coaching in the NFL.
One of their players said it, Aldo.
Yeah, whoa, one of the players. Okay, so
one of their players said it.
Wow.
That it's like we quit, and really that falls on the head coach. Yeah,
it sure effing does. Somebody, OKC Bear, I just lost it, but OKC Bear just said that everything works better on with the offense when the offensive line is playing well. How much better is this offensive line from the one that we saw the first week of the season?
Well, let's back up a little bit on that. The line was a little bit in flux during the preseason because you had guys in and out because of injuries.
Yep.
And I don't think during the preseason, the regular line played much more than about 7 or 8 plays together, if that. So it took a little bit longer to gel. Then there have been injuries. This is like not even 2 weeks in a row you have the same line starting with the same line because Tevin started last week and then he played the whole game. But how about this? Tevin played really well yesterday, and he played good first half last week, but Murray played great the second half last week. Mm-hmm. And, I got a text from Ed Duecker, and he was saying, how well Tevin played. And I just said my answer was right away. It's funny what a little bit of competition can do. All of a sudden, that ankle got better real quick.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, and I do think that you're right. He did Jenkins did play well in the first half last week, so he was trending up. It just seems like the offensive line as an entire unit is just playing much better. I'm not sure if it's because of Caleb, the whole cadence thing, which I still don't grasp 100%, but it appears like the cadence was not helping the offensive line and the tight ends do their jobs from time to time because there were some inconsistencies with it.
Well, part of it,
yeah.
Let me see if I can explain it this way if it makes sense. Part of it is, and we talked about it a lot, but I don't think people really understand it. But now it's really coming into focus as you're seeing Caleb get better literally every week. Okay, he's seeing things on the defense. He's understanding it. He's reading it better. If you watch, I watch the play clock a lot. They're either out of the huddle and up to the line with like 17 seconds, 18 seconds, which is quick. They're getting up there. They got plenty of time. When they do, when they're playing tempo and they're not going in a huddle, then Caleb's getting the play, but he's got the opportunity to change a play if he has to. And if you listen, he's changing the play a lot. And he's getting real good at that, and he's getting very comfortable at doing that. So part of it's just the whole process that they're going through, the whole operation. And that comes with, you could say, well, the offensive line's playing better, but really I think it's more Caleb getting better and Caleb getting more used to things. I wrote, it came out Saturday morning. I wrote it. Well, I did write it Saturday morning. They published it Saturday afternoon. That I thought Keenan Allen would have a big game this week. And the reason being is he missed a lot of time in preseason. He missed 2 full weeks and hardly practiced the first 3 weeks of the season. Now he's had 3 weeks of practice. It just stood to reason that he was going to get the ball more because he's had more opportunity to connect with Caleb in practice. What happens? He's got 2 touchdowns, catches 5 passes or something.
Yeah, pretty cool. The question has been offered about Nate Davis's future with the Chicago Bears. Is he done with the Bears? It is interesting that when he was out of the lineup, the Bears did seem to play better, have been playing better. Is Nate Davis unlikely to see, unless because of injury? I don't think they're going to drop him. There's no reason to, because they got to pay him, and so he can serve as an emergency.
There's guaranteed money. He's here, I think, for the duration. What would be great if he got you're going to pay him one way or another, but get a good injury and you could IR him and then not even have to carry him on the 53, but you got to have a legitimate injury to do that.
Somebody go for the knees.
But, what will be interesting is, Bates will be coming off of IR probably after the bye. Borum could come off of IR. Whether I don't think you bring Borum off unless you have to bring him off.
Yeah.
Because he's like the extra piece of the puzzle. But it's interesting. They're getting healthy, but at the same time, you look at the injuries. Brisker should be back because he had a concussion. So now he's got this week. And then after 2 full weeks, he should be cleared to play and good to go against Washington in 2 weeks. But I'm not so sure if the other guy gets, is ready to play. A pulled hamstring can be tough.
Yes.
And, it depends if it was a full pull or just a light strain. But sometimes those can linger for 3 to 4 weeks. And God damn, was he playing good yesterday?
He really was.
That first half, he had a ton of tackles. Forced plays. I mean, he was having like a Pro Bowl season in the first half of yesterday's game. He did. I mean, that was really incredible play. That's as good as we've seen a nickel play ever here in Chicago.
Yeah, I tweeted out that he has to be in the conversation for Pro Bowl. Kyler Gordon does, because he is. And by the way, the Irish Bears show. There was a comment here that from J2K says the Irish lads said they saw Gordon walking after the game without a limp. Don't read too much into that, but it is encouraging.
Really, with a your leg can get stiff. Now, I've had my fair share of hammies over the course of my athletic career, and it does tighten up, and you get ice on it right away. Now, but you're not necessarily going to walk with a limp.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means anything, but you got all this week. Well, they're totally off. I think they meet today, and that's it. Yep. It used to be that you practiced. You had 2 or 3 days of practice during your bye week, and then the last collective bargaining agreement they did, the union was able to get that thing sorted out. Those guys get a complete week off.
Yeah, well, that's good for them. Now, J2K has an interesting question since we're talking about lineups here. He says, we got a handful of guys coming off IR all at the same time. Huge roster shakeup incoming. Borum, Bates, and Jacob Martin. Does one of them get cut?
You don't have to bring them off. They're eligible to come off. I think Bates comes off.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I said a couple minutes ago about Borum. And Martin could come off, and who's he replace? Dominic Robinson. He hadn't dressed all year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it's too bad, because I was anxious to see him play, because he was so much better against the run than I've ever seen in his years with the Chicago Bears. But I'd hate to totally give up on him. But this Bears defense is playing well. We'll get to the defense in a minute, but I think the lead story, which we've buried, we're 17 minutes into the show, and we haven't talked about Caleb Williams, because what we saw yesterday was a phenomenal step forward in his development as the quarterback. I turned on the national broadcast, and ESPN and Fox and all those people are talking about Caleb Williams is starting to look like a dynamite quarterback. And Jaden Daniels, what? You dare compare Jaden Daniels?
No part of that is, and I agree with you, that's the first time they've had a game all by themselves. Isn't it?
What do you mean? What do you mean all by themselves?
They were on the national stage with no other game as a competition.
Oh, yeah, and Caleb thrives on that. Yeah, he loves that.
Well, not that Caleb thrives on it. It's that all eyes were on that game. If you're going to watch a game, that's
I see what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, so now it's like, and Kurt Warner's doing the analysis for the NFL Network, and he was being very pro Caleb with his analysis. So all of a sudden, you're going to start hearing that stuff. Jaden Daniels has that one big game. I think it's the second week of the season, and he's played good. You can't take it away from him. But I guarantee you, he isn't being asked to do half or even a quarter of what Caleb is being asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different system. But as far as the freedom Caleb has to get things done, and part of that is the growth.
Yes.
And you see some of these throws he makes. Those are some special throws now.
Indeed.
The touchdown pass to Keenan Allen, it was a hell of a throw by Caleb, but it was also a great catch by Keenan Allen getting both feet in. I mean, he had his 1 foot in by maybe a half inch.
Yeah, the adjustment that he made. And to me, Greg, what is most impressive about Caleb through these 6 games is the command that he has of the offense. I mean, he loves working in that 2-minute offense, that hurry-up offense, and he's calling plays. He's telling pieces. He's looking at the defense. He's studying what they're doing pre-snap. He's studying what they're doing after snap. He seems to have a grasp of this offense that I've never seen in a Chicago Bears quarterback in their rookie season. He's light years ahead of most quarterbacks that I've seen.
He's way ahead, way ahead. But I may be wrong on this, but I think they've scored 3 weeks in a row in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Yeah. I know they have 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But I think they have 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah. The problem, as you mentioned earlier, is still the first quarter. They're ranking in the bottom of the league in terms of points from the offense in the first quarter. We talked about the scripting of plays and so forth. Do you think this is just something that is probably is going to be reversed very soon? Or what can you say about this lack of points in the first quarter?
Well, last week was the first week they got a touchdown in the first quarter.
Okay.
So
yeah, okay.
They had a field goal in one game. They're just, I don't want to say they're starting off flat. They're just not starting off as quick as you'd like. And in fairness, the defense isn't either. The defense 2 weeks in a row has given up a drive on an opening drive to their opponent. So both, for lack of a better word, might be a little flat. But after that first drive by Jacksonville, defense really came out. I got to say, he didn't get a sack, but a guy who jumped out, because he might have only played 15, 20 snaps, was Booker. Did you see some of the hustle plays Booker made yesterday?
Oh, yes.
I mean, really, really nice plays where he just didn't give up and ended up making the tackle. I think that kid's going to be a hell of a player. He's got to get a little stronger, a little heftier, but he's for the size he is, he's got good strength. Now they got him listed as 6'6". He isn't 6'6", he's 6'4". But is what it is. He looks 6'6" because he looks like a spider. His arms and legs are so long.
Tim Willis said this earlier. Greg, can you please explain to people that we didn't draft the wrong quarterback? Daniels isn't asked to do nearly what Caleb is, and I know you talked about this earlier. He's running the same offense he ran at LSU, and it's not sustainable in the NFL. Yeah, I wanted you to confirm that because I've heard from both sides, no, he's not running the same offense he was at college.
He ran a very similar offense to what he ran at LSU. A lot of same concepts. Okay. And so he's been in it now 3 years. And it's not even like the USC offense that Caleb ran. So actually the coach went back to what the quarterback did. And I'm sure they'll add things as time goes on. But in fairness, they didn't play a good defense till yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was ball run. And he still played. Daniels had pretty good numbers.
Yeah. True. Very true. By the way, I just want to let people know I am collecting questions. I got questions in the queue from Creighton, Lee, Everyday, Brummy Bear, FFG style. So keep them coming. I will store them and we'll address them soon. So back to Caleb Williams. That one play, that pass that you mentioned earlier to Keenan Allen at the middle of the field, what he did there and the location of that pass, because Allen was headed right towards the safety who was in the middle of the field. And Caleb didn't throw it there because it could have been potentially. He threw it back shoulder. And I mean, I'm still marveling over that throw. And then Keenan's other touchdown at the goal line where Keenan faked going inside, and then it's the fade throw to the corner pylon. Just phenomenal quarterbacking by this kid. How much more can he improve, Greg?
Oh, he's going to improve by leaps and bounds still. As he gets more comfortable with his receiving core and he gets more comfortable seeing things that defenses are throwing on him. He still hasn't seen everything yet, but in 6 games, he's seen a lot. And if you notice now, teams aren't crowding the box anymore like they did in the first 3 games.
Yep.
They're backing off, and they have to because they're seeing what he can do with the ball in his hand as far as throwing. So I like it that, when he sees the run lane there, he takes off and run. The only thing I didn't see is, I saw Caleb run a lot in college. He looked a hell of a lot faster than he did yesterday. Yesterday, the one run, he looked like he had a piano on his back.
That's great.
But he's been really, really effective. But to me, it's just how he's seeing things and understanding things. And it's hard to really explain it. And we can go back, because somebody brought it up last week and I had missed it watching the replay. And then Swifty sent me a close-up of it where, Shelton said, "Hey, dude, we got a fire going. We got a fucking fire going."
There you go.
And but Caleb said right away, "I know."
Yeah.
It's like they're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But one of the points I wanted to bring up about that is, we'll go back in the spring and people were saying, "We got to draft a center." And I had a conversation with Olin and he said, "You can't have a rookie center and a rookie quarterback. It's tough." And that was a perfect example why. Because they've got to see and understand things.
Yeah.
He knew, through Shelton's experience, been a starter for 3 years in the league. So through that, he could recognize what Carolina was going to try to do on that particular play, let the rest of the line know, let his quarterback know. You got a rookie in there, and now you got two blind men playing the game, trying to learn, and they get better every game. But it's just important that you have a guy who knows what the hell he's doing with the rookie quarterback. Now, next year, could you put with Caleb having a year of experience under his belt and being as smart as he is, could you do it then? Probably. Might be a little slow in the beginning, but yeah, that would work a lot better than trying to pair two of them together this year.
Yeah. A good example of what you're talking about is John Michael Schmitz, a kid from Minnesota who I saw down at the Senior Bowl, and I fell in love with him because he was just knocking the shit out of anyone in sight. It just his hustle, and it was also shared to me by scouts that he was a very bright guy. Well, I think he's with the New York Giants, and he's had trouble acclimating to the NFL. It's not playing terribly, and he shows great promise, but I think he's now in his second or third year. And yeah, exactly. It takes a while for the center because there's just so much going on. And you can imagine on a Brian Dable type offense that the responsibilities of the center are really high.
The center has got to, he's in charge of the offensive line. So he's making protection calls. The quarterback's making protection calls, but they got to work in unison. It's like if you want to compare it to a receiver and a quarterback, and the receiver has route options based on what the defense does, and the quarterback and the receiver got to be on the same page. The quarterback's got to be reading the defense or the coverage in a certain way, and the receiver's got to be reading it the exact same way. He makes the right cut, runs the right route, you get a big play. But if they're not on the same page, you see, the receiver going in and the ball going out of bounds, something like that. Well, that's the same thing with the center. And it's tough. And that's why it's very difficult to have a young center in there with a young quarterback.
Yeah, very good. That's great context there. Now, let's talk about the running game because DeAndre Swift is putting up total yards, receiving and running that are very, very impressive. Whoever has them in a fantasy football league, it's finally paying off for you. What has unlocked DeAndre Swift's offensive skills? After the first couple of weeks, everybody's saying we made a mistake, we signed the wrong guy, we should have gone for Barkley, and blah, blah, blah. I may have said that.
That's what too many people make decisions after like the first quarter instead of watching the whole season. Yeah. You got to let things unfold. The line wasn't playing good. That's part of it. I don't think he was totally confident in what he was seeing, as far as blocks being set up. So it was really the two of them, the two groups, Swift and the offensive line working together. And they said, I think that Swift had to be a little bit more decisive with his reads and his inside runs. And so things have opened up. The thing they've done 2 weeks in a row now, and it's becoming a hell of a play, is that screen pass.
Yeah. Love it. The Bears have always, for many, many years, always had difficulty perfecting that screen game. And so it's nice to see that happening now. Bear Truth 9 is echoing what a lot of people in the chat are talking about. We need to get a more physical run game somehow. Get Roshan involved more or look for a running back option that costs a mid-late pick. It's going to get cold, and we need to get physical, and we're on the good teams. We're out the good teams.
Well, Roshan is that guy. There's no question about it. I was listening to the post game show. After the game was over, I had to run some errands with my wife. So I had the thing. I was with Pat Manley and Olin. And Olin came in late because his wife had run on the Chicago Marathon. So he wasn't there for the beginning of it.
Oh, cool.
But he had watched the whole game, probably from some bar along the marathon route. But he was mentioning like how good the offensive line played, especially in the run game. And there were some times, and the guy who was really playing really well is Pryor. Now, physically, he's not exactly what you want for this scheme because he doesn't have that ability to play in space like a more athletic guy does. So I think they've changed the blocking a little bit to fit his traits, which is a smart thing to do on Semo's part and Walter's part. But I know that, like Olin said, there were times between Shelton and Pryor and Wright, they were just destroying people on some double teams and stuff. And if you see some of the replays, some really big games where they're really wiping people out. So that part's getting good. And you get linemen love to run block. They're not backing up, they're going forward and they're using their strength. So you get a good ground game, they love it. Olin had a gif out, the Tony Soprano one smoking the cigar, because he just liked the way the line play was going and what the Bears were doing in the run game. And I think that's part of it. See, now you can't crowd the box because Caleb's figured out how to beat it. And because you can't crowd the box, it opens up the run game too. So, everything's working good. Hell, 10 offensive touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Oof. That's pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good is right. All right, let me tackle some of these questions. We'll talk a little bit more about the offense and then get to the defense. Let's see here. This is what Lee said. It's just a comment. Can we just start every game up tempo, please? We always look better. What do you think about the idea of playing, starting out of the gate on that fast-paced offense that Caleb seems to like so much?
I don't have anything against it. I think you want to get a little bit of a feel for the game first, feel for what the defense is going to do. You never know exactly. You studied film. You have a feeling what they're going to do, but they always try to do something to stop you. So it's, you'll hear coaches say after the game, well, they came out and did some stuff we weren't prepared for. We didn't, hadn't seen them do that before on tape. Well, that's what part of that beginning of the game is about. And so whether up tempo is the right thing to do, it could, I put it this way, there's no harm in trying, but you know how the second guessers are around here. You try it and you get a turnover, they're going to be pissing and moaning. So,
yeah. The one thing about the up tempo, Greg, and I'd love to get your comment on this, is you want to score points, of course, but you also have to manage the ball because you don't want your defense running out there. Typically what happens if you're going to score a lot of points in an up-tempo, the other team is going to score because you're sending a defense out there with very little rest. Am I wrong about that?
Well, not totally. Give you like yesterday's game. The Bears ended up winning the time of possession like by about a minute. I mean, it was pretty close. But they hardly had the ball in the first quarter.
That's true.
Okay, so Jacksonville really in the first half, Jacksonville had an advantage. But in the second quarter, the Bears controlled the clock a lot. And then they did it in the second half, and they ended up, winning the overall time of possession battle. But one of the things that I think it's a very good stat, but where sometimes it doesn't matter is when your special teams or your defense scores. Now your defense, say gets a fumble recovery and takes it in for a touchdown or a pick six. Well, you got 7 points, but you're going right back out on the field again. So that's how your defense gets tired, because they got to play a lot of plays in a row, even though they have the big plays. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Perfect sense. And OKC makes a good point. Hurry up to the line does not mean hurry up to and snap. You can control the
what
clock.
They're doing is they're coming out of the play and lining up.
Yeah.
Then they're calling everything from the line of scrimmage.
Good point, guys. Good point. All right, let's get back to some more questions here. I have Brandon Lawson. Brandon, how could you ask such a question? When do you think Caleb will peak for his rookie year? Is it week 11? Is week 11 a possibility? That's when we play the Packers, which will certainly be a test.
He's already. I mean, he's pretty damn good right now. He threw 4 touchdowns yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I inferred by that question is that he peaked and we're not going to see him get any better. I think he could continue to peak into the final game of the season, whenever that is. It could be a playoff game. Well, I don't think there's a ceiling yet.
Player. Yeah, I mean, he might peak 6 years from now.
Exactly.
Okay, the more you see, okay, we all hate Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
But what Aaron Rodgers does is he's seen everything.
Yeah.
Well, now he can't move, so you can't use it now in the same way. But he'd come up to the line of scrimmage, he'd get his pre-snap reads. He knew exactly what you were going to do, and he knew how to check out of it and get a successful play. But that's experience.
Yeah.
And Caleb is getting it. I think he's a quick study. He's learning on the run very, very well. It's impressive what he's doing. And, what I had thought that he was, as a rookie quarterback, he was going to look like this through 6. I mean, he's got 9 touchdown passes and didn't throw one in the first 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. All right. More questions. Oh my goodness. We got trade talk already. Creighton wanted to know, although who are 2 trades the Bears could make to help? And FFG Style says, Greg, what position would you consider at the trade deadline?
Well, we had this question last week, and I referenced it by saying, look, until a couple of years ago, the trade deadline in the National Football League was a date. Nothing happened.
First date.
It's changed in the last few years. Part of it is people trying to dump some contracts, similar to some of the other sports, see if they can get a draft pick. But, I think it's impossible to answer the question because, number one, it's not for another 3 weeks or something. And number 2, who the hell's available?
Yeah.
You don't know that. And the media starts throwing stuff out. Well, so-and-so might be available. Like, there were a day Hutchinson gets hurt yesterday. He's probably out for the year because he broke 2 bones in his leg. Awful injury. And so now the media's already got potential trades going on with Detroit to get a replacement. And they got, other trades going on. And all it is fantasy football on their part.
Mm-hmm.
None of these stuff happened.
Yeah.
And you got to wait and see who may be available, what their contractual status is. Ryan Poles is not going to trade for a 32-year-old guy with a big contract or something like that
right.
he thinks is going to be going downhill. He wants guys that are still climbing the mountain. So even if that guy could help the team this year, in the long run, it's not a good move to make.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I do think that, there are teams like somebody I just posted up, the Browns and the Jaguars are going to be sellers at the deadline. Well, Cleveland has a left tackle, Jedrick Willis, who is on the 5th year of his contract. There's a big question whether the Browns are going to sign him to a big fat contract because he has not been played at an elite level, but he might demand that. Could the Bears potentially say, hey, we really like this guy. We think he's got a lot of untapped potential. Let's make the trade, but let's first see if we can sign him to a long-term deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, number one, you don't. It's a thing like with Sweat last year.
Right.
You don't make the deal until you know you can make the contract, and then you're also saying, is he better than the guy we got?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
That's the most important thing is he better than the guy we already had? You're not going to put a guy in that position unless you say he's going to be head and shoulders above the guy you already got playing there, who is a lot cheaper. And now you can finagle the cap around, but they only got like $7 million left in this year's cap. And what they don't spend this year gets carried over into next year. So you want that almost as an advantage to carry over as much as you can. But if you can get a guy, I think they'd rather get a guy that, maybe in the same situation, not necessarily a left tackle or whatever, but in the same situation. But it depends. Who is he? What's his injury history? How good has he been playing? That type of, and can he help us?
Exactly.
And so you're not going to make a trade just to make a trade because you're giving up an asset.
Right. Well, and a lot of fans are like Illinois Jones here, asking the question is, how bad is Braxton Jones? And I'll just add this quick opinion. Braxton Jones is not killing us. He's certainly not playing at a Pro Bowl level at left tackle.
He may never play at a Pro Bowl level, but he's a rank and file left tackle in the league.
Exactly. I think you could potentially live with him through the rest of the season. You got Karan Amagaji, who is potentially the successor to Braxton Jones, and we might see.
Or he's going to be an inside player. It's going to be, you want to get your best 5 out there. Perfect examples prior, because people have brought up, the long arms. Let's look up Matt Pryor's combine numbers here. So, because I think he's got pretty long arms, and he was a tackle coming into the league, but he started, if you look at Pro Football Reference, I think he had like a dozen starts at guard or 9 starts at guard over his career, and played as a backup, a swing guard and swing tackle. So,
and as you're looking that up, I'll read Swift's note on Braxton Jones. Is the only offensive lineman on the Bears who has not given up a sack this season. So that, I think that's important to say, but the question though is how many pressures has he given up, Swifty, who came up with that fact about Braxton? Because in today's NFL, the tackles are judged just as much by the pressures they're allowing than the sacks, because the ball is coming out so quickly. You want to disrupt timing. You want to get in the face. You want to get that quarterback moving and making off balance throws. And so that's the key point. We can't judge offensive linemen simply by sacks alone, particularly the offensive tackles. So what do you got?
Prior at 35 and a half inch arms.
Oh, okay. Well, isn't that up your alley?
No, yeah, but what I'm saying, and he's a big guy. He's about the same size as he was 6'6" 3/4", 328 coming out of college. So he's actually a little bit taller, a little bit heavier than Amagaji, and he's playing pretty good guard. He's not as athletic as Amagaji. So you can't tell me Amagaji can't play guard. But
interesting.
Right now, he's getting a few snaps. I think I looked up Pro Football Reference. Outside of field goal PAT, I think he had 5 snaps going into yesterday. Now, there was a couple situations yesterday where they played a heavy package where he was in and the backup center was in. So then he's been playing field goal and extra point. So he's getting a little bit of play time each year. But really, this year's a semi-red shirt for him unless they have to play him because he got the late start and he missed all that time in training camp. But I see him as a starter next year. I just don't know where.
Yeah. Well, if they want to take a look at it, if Amagaji is making progress in practice, because that, of course, is the key to determining whether he's going to get any snaps on the offensive line this season, perhaps, we might see him right after this bye. Potentially, we could see him handling a few snaps at left tackle or at right tackle. You know how they ramp certain players up just to get a look at them. And so what is the possibility of that, do you think?
Well, if it's a defensive lineman, he'd be getting snaps because they rotate him.
Right.
They don't rotate offensive linemen because it's not conventional. It's not conducive to what you're trying to do because the five have to play as one on the offensive line. So he's not going to get snaps unless somebody gets hurt or they're blowing somebody out or getting blown out, in which case he's going to get snaps.
We have seen that rotation on the offensive line with Nate Davis and who was that right guard at an early point this season. They have done that, but I understand. You're absolutely right. We rarely see that on the offensive line. Defensive line is much more common. All right, let's get to some more comments or questions from the chat. Ryan Fernandez says, Greg, while it's nice to see Waldron improve on play calling, I'm a little concerned in the fourth quarter with the lead. He sticks to throwing the ball instead of running to drain the clock. Do you think so?
When you got a lead like do whatever the hell you want. No, I'm serious. I'm not being comical trying to say that. It's like you weren't worrying about losing. You're trying to perfect your offense, and the other team knows they're thinking you're going to run the ball, so they're geared to stop the run.
Right.
So a lot of pass plays are there. You know, it's always a chess game between the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, and you know you're trying to move the sticks and keep the ball, you know, away from the bad guys. And sometimes you got to throw the ball to do that.
J2K says Jags scored a touchdown and Waldron kept the gas on to keep the lead. Yeah, I don't think that was a big problem, Mr. Fernandez. You know, I think there's going to be times where he is going to lean on the run. But I like the idea that they're getting as many pass attempts with the lead to Caleb because we want to expedite his growth as a passer in this league. And the setting was right for that kind of play calling yesterday in London. All right, back to questions. Matt Fochisi says, is Roschon Johnson a workhorse? He's concerned about that. We don't know because we don't use a running back in that workhorse manner. It's much more of a committee approach.
Almost no team does anymore.
Yeah.
You know, Henry might for Baltimore, and even he gets spelled at times. It's just not the way you use running backs anymore. What you want is backs that can complement each other. And Roschon and Swift are entirely different kind of players. You know, so one is a power player and one is I like to call him a space player, you know, because he is so good in space. So I think they are complementary. You know, I said during the preseason, it wouldn't have shocked me if Herbert got traded, but then the one running back went down and the rookie running back went down in the preseason and that screwed all that. But you notice he gets no reps, very little reps. You know, Roschon is getting the number 2 back reps and that's it.
Yeah. Herbert is only on the team in case one of the 2 running backs gets hurt.
That's
Absolutely.
right. And he's, I'll tell you right now, not going to be here next year. He's out of contract.
Yeah, indeed. Jesse showed up just to take a shot at you, Greg. He says, Greg, you blocked me on Twitter. I'm just checking in on you.
Yeah, and I need to know
Justin.
your Twitter name because I put in Jesse Mutarelli and I got nothing.
There you go.
What's his Twitter handle? So that I could look at.
He just comes in, lays that out, and then he leaves. I bet he's not around anymore. Anyway, let's go to Brummy. This is more of a comment. What a day yesterday. He was at the game. The atmosphere was unbelievable. It was a Bears takeover of Tottenham Stadium. Awesome, both on and off the field. The best it's ever been in the UK. The Bears. Thanks for the report, Brummy. That's great news. All right, we need to start talking about whoa, before we get off the offense, as OKC Bear says, seriously, we need to talk about how well Kmet played yesterday, because he is something else.
Number one, I mean, what he did as a tight end is great, but coming into having a deep snap, he had one kind of bad snap. It was off center on the kick that got blocked, the last one. Aside from that, pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he had to do a punt snap. I don't think they punted it.
I don't think so either. They didn't in the second half.
They punted early. That's what I mean. I don't think after Daly got hurt, I don't think he had to do the 15 or 14-yard snap. He just had to do the PAT extra point snaps. And for the most part, it was pretty damn good. But to ask him to do that, you're not doing it regularly. I thought he should have got the game ball. No, they didn't. I know I saw a video of Flus praised the hell out of him in the locker room, but he didn't hand him a game ball. But, that part might not have been on video.
Yeah. It was funny. I think Cairo was kidding when he said this, but he said Cole should be the special teams player of the week. I don't think he's going to get that for 2 or 3 snaps, but I get the idea. The other thing about
that's not. I'll tell you what. You get Pat Manley on to talk about that. That's not an easy job.
Yeah,
that's a difficult freaking job. You got to get it back now. It sounds like Daly hurt his knee pretty bad. I don't think the other guy's ready to come off IR yet. And so they're going to have to go out and sign a guy. Maybe the guy they had preseason. I don't know.
Yeah, Brad Biggs wrote that there were a couple of guys in training camp, and they're still out in the street. So probably reach out to both of those guys and do a tryout.
They can try out guys this week. There's you don't have to sign anybody until next week because nothing goes on this week. Mm-hmm. So why pay him for a week when you don't have to?
Spoken like an economic conservative, right? Greg?
No word salad from this guy.
The Cole Kmet, one of the things about him that I wanted to ask you is, you've correctly informed us that he is an inline tight end first and foremost. But hasn't he developed into much more than that? I mean, he looks like a Kittle or a Kelsey, who are not necessarily wide tight ends. This guy can do everything, block, and he's not a great blocker, but he can definitely do everything really well.
Well, there was one play I did not see the play when I watched the replay. Olin mentioned on the radio yesterday after the game there was one play where him and Wright just knocked the dog shit out of one guy on a double. But yeah, in reality he's one of the better blocking tight ends in the game. Whether you want to agree with it or not, he is. He doesn't have that speed / athleticism that these move tight ends have, but he's very effective catching the ball. I tweeted after the touchdown. I said he did his best Gronk imitation on that touchdown where he ran over the guy. And he's an effective player, and he keeps getting better.
He sure does. There's no doubt about it. Cole Kmet, a lot of praise for you. Keep it going. He's from Arlington Heights, where I happen to live right now, so that's great news. All right, we got to talk about the defense, and the place to start is the defensive backfield, because as King Booker World says, the DB depth on this team is unbelievable. Jalen Jones and Elijah Hicks step in for 2 injured starters, and then when Kyler Gordon goes down, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Blackwell, is it?
Blackwell, and he gets a pick.
And he gets a pick. I mean, these are 3 backups, and they're playing at starter level.
You see what they did during the preseason, and all those guys have started games now. Blackwell has started a game. Mm-hmm. Jones has started a few games more as a rookie. He did, not last year, but has played a number of plays. He had that real when Stevens got hurt last year. He had or last week he got a pass breakup late in the game where he came It was a comeback pattern. He reached across in front of the guy, a nice back or pass break up. He's a talented guy. This guy ran like a sub 4.4 when he came out of Mississippi. He was overage, so he's like a 25-year-old rookie, and that's probably one of the reasons he didn't get drafted, because his Mississippi tape was pretty good.
Yeah.
He's a good player. He's in his third year now. Probably after his fourth year, after next year, you're not going to be able to keep him because somebody's going to pay him. He's that good. And Hicks came in, played real good. And the same thing with Blackwell. Blackwell's not anywhere near as physical as Gordon is. And so they can't do some of the stuff they were doing with Gordon, you can't do with Blackwell. But his coverage skills are really good. And he's a tough kid, a smart kid. He went to Duke, so he's got a brain. That is a very, very good part. I wasn't that worried about the secondary. It was if somebody else gets hurt, and then Gordon did, who knows how long he's going to be out. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that he does not play against Washington, but we won't know that till next week sometime.
Interesting. The thing about this.
What was that question about Hassan Riddick?
No, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I think this is just out.
Yeah, he signed with either last night or today, and Drew's got a meeting with the Jets tonight. He's going to the Bills-Jets game. He might have him sign with the Jets tonight.
Yeah. The thing about the backfield that I'm impressed with is that the defensive line is not elite, but they compensate for that because, if you were to take a stopwatch by how long the quarterback has to, the opposing quarterback, when he's facing the Bears defensive backfield, he doesn't have, as many wide open receivers, I'm going to venture to say, as other quarterbacks. The coverage is just excellent. Do you see what I'm saying? We could use.
I disagree on one thing. I think the defensive line is getting close to elite. Might not be there yet.
Oh.
They play really good. They put consistent pressure on the quarterback. They got 4 sacks yesterday, which that they're averaging, I think, 4 sacks a game for the year, which gives you 34. It gives you like 60 sacks or something for the season. I'll take 60 sacks. What they have last year, 33 or something like that, 34.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a year. If you can get 4 a game, your pass rush is really doing well. So, sometimes they're a little light against the run earlier in the game, more so than later in the game. You think it might be the opposite, but they brought up Cowart. Cowart is another beefy guy that you can use in the middle on the run downs, and it's I think it's very solid. It's not the best defensive line in the league, but sure as hell isn't the worst. It's a good one. I mean, overall, defense has given up 20 points one time this year, gave up 21 to the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
They've only given up 101 on the season.
That's awesome.
So the defense as a whole is very good. I don't know how many turnovers they've would they have 3 turnovers yesterday?
I think it was 2.
Well, I know there was an interception. There was a fumble that got called back. Edmonds had that one fumble, and then they said that it wasn't a fumble. It wasn't a catch and a fumble.
Right. We had Tevin Jenkins and, that was an offensive fumble because he recovered a fumble. Elijah Hicks recovered a fumble. And, of course, there was one
Blackwell had an interception.
Right. So total it up to 2, I believe.
Okay. And so they were +1 because they had the interception against, that Caleb threw. So, right. But they're on the positive side of that equation in most games. They weren't early when they lost a couple. But when you, I mean, the defense is very opportunistic.
Mm-hmm.
So when they make plays like that, they're creating plays for the offense. In fact, what was it? They had the opening kickoff. They forced a fumble, but the Jags recovered the fumble. And then like 3 plays later, Bears defense forced another turnover.
Yeah. Wasn't that the punch out by Edwards, the linebacker?
It might have been. I know it was just a few plays later that they had the thing. So, yeah, it's let me look up one thing here.
While you're looking that up, I will Illinois Jones says, just watching the defense play, you can tell how well coached they are. They certainly are. But the other thing is, I'm surprised at the amount of times the Bears are blitzing. And Eric Washington said this week, I want to get a pass rush with just 4 men. But I think a lot of that, and we all do, of course. But I think he knows. But don't worry, I'm going to be blitzing a lot. We got a lot of blitzes coming because they do such a great job of disguising blitzes and these 3-man coverages, blanketing the field. I think part of the reason the pass rush is playing so much better is because there are more blitzes this year. What say you, Greg?
Well, there are. They pick and choose where they use them.
Yeah,
it's not like they're sending guys all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They pick and choose, but it could be a DB. I can't even pronounce the one guy's name who got a sack yesterday. Ogbagminia or whatever his name is.
Close enough.
he got a sack. Yeah. Defensive backs have had sacks. Yesterday, when you look at the sacks, I mean it was pretty good. You had guys who got like their first sacks for the year. Let me get into this. 1 second here.
Swift has been nice enough to give us the phonetic sounding Ogbangbe Mega. See, I get it wrong, even with the phonetic spelling. Ogbangbe Mega. If I could just keep that in my mind the rest of the day, I'll never get it wrong.
Byron Coward had a half a sack with Sweat. Ogbongbemia had a sack. Chris Williams had a sack. And there was one other one. Oh, DeMarcus Walker had a sack. So, it's not like the same guys are getting them. Dexter got shut out yesterday, but the guy gets pressures every week.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be among the top 5 defensive tackles in the NFC. Wouldn't you guess? I mean, I know it takes study to say that definitively, but he's got to be among the top 5 defensive tackles in pro football.
Well, I'll say top 5 pass rushers.
Okay,
maybe even better than that. Because I think his run game's got to improve a little bit more, but he hasn't touched what he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's still a baby too. He's another guy who just spent 3 years in college.
That's right. All right, let's see what I got in terms of questions. We got that one already. DB depth. Florida Bears fan, with Martin wrapping up, how much of an impact does Greg think he will make? Oh, and F Green Bay. Now, who's he talking about? Martin wrapping up.
The defensive end.
Oh, okay. Jacob.
He's got 3 weeks, and this week counts as number 2. Mm-hmm. So next week's practice will be number 3. So the Bears got to do one of 2 things at the end of or going into the Washington game. Mm-hmm. They got to either put him on the 53 or he goes back on IR for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is they bring him up to the 53. Robinson gets cut, and if Robinson doesn't get claimed, then they put him on the practice squad.
What do you say to Bears fans who are complaining about the amount of yards the Bears give up? There are some drives that the opposing team has where they run a lot of plays, pick up a lot of yards. It's frustrating for Bears fans. What can you say to Bears fans who focus on that a lot?
Most of their yards, if you look at the game, most of their yards came on that first drive, and then that last touchdown drive when the Bears were already ahead by 20 points, more than 20 points.
Yeah.
And when you get up in the National Football League, when you get up by a big number like they were, it's not like you're playing with the intensity level that you were to get there. That's just a natural let up in it. Anybody who wants to bitch about the defense is bitching about the wrong thing. Like I say, 101 points have given up. That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's part of the way the NFL is played now is a bend don't break. Because you got a lot of these cover defenses. For instance, the defensive back who Jalen Jones said, I wanted everything in front of me. I was actually surprised that they didn't challenge me with Brian Thomas because he's so fast going on deep passes. But the game plan was for me to have everything in front of me. And that, of course, is brilliant. Of course you want that. You don't want Brian Thomas 10 yards behind you. And Jacksonville probably didn't challenge it because they saw the defense the Bears were playing and were saying, why challenge them? We're probably not going to beat them on long passes because they're playing back there. So it is what it is. Give up as many yards as you want. Just get the ball to Caleb eventually, and Caleb scores, and that's a winning formula just about any week. All right, Bear Necessity says 21 games straight up, giving up 21 points, 21 or less points. That's an NFL record. Enough said. Excellent exclamation point on that.
Yeah, so anybody who says wants to bring up negative things about the defense, take a hike.
There you go. At least give it a rest. What are
you're nitpicking. You're looking for something to bitch about when there's nothing there.
All right, so what happens during the bye week, Greg? So the building is empty. Is it totally empty?
The building's empty for the players, not for the coaching staff.
Coaches and
coaching
scouts
staff might have a long weekend. They do. They're going to be. They'll start working on. They'll get a head start on the next couple games, just because they can, and then they do their own self scouting where you're going to start looking at what worked, what didn't work, type of thing like that, and then you can make changes or adjustments along the way. Because of that's always a valuable time for the coaching staff.
Yes, indeed. One of the theories that I have is that the Bears are the Bears defensive geniuses are going to figure out this Cliff Kingsbury offense and really come out next week, their next game, and put a stop to a lot of the things that Jaden Daniels does well. That extra week of preparation for the Bears coaches is really going to help out this team against the Commanders. You agree with that?
Yeah, it could. I mean, they'll look at what Baltimore did yesterday. They play Carolina next week, so obviously they're going to get a look at that. I think it helps that they have the extra week for the coaches to prepare. I mean, the players are on vacation. So, and by the way, I don't think there's any press conference set up for today. Is there?
I don't think so either.
Because I was figuring they were going to get back to Hallis. So it's, 40-minute drive from the airport to Hallis, sometime between 12:30 and 1, because they were at least an hour away from the airport where the Tottenham Stadium is, and then it's an 8.5-hour flight coming back, depending on the wind, because they're going into the wind. But it's the media is not here.
Media is not here. Yeah, so if they have a press conference, I'm sure it will be just Eberflus on Zoom.
But the media isn't even there to watch it on Zoom.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. I'm wondering if they wait until I mean, I don't know what the flight schedule is. Most people, when you're coming back from Europe, I know when I've come back, you're like leaving late in the morning. Like I know when I came back from London twice, you left late in the morning and you were getting in late in the afternoon. Our time, with the time change,
Right.
and that game was at 2:30 London time, guys. I mean, so unless there was like a red-eye type flight where they could have gotten it around 11 o'clock last night or something, 11 o'clock last night, English time,
Right.
British time, and then get home. I mean, I don't know what the flight schedules are. So,
yeah, I doubt we'll see a press conference today, but we will see. What do you say to Alex Macho Man Machado? He says, I hate that blasting game. Velas, Damrob, and Nate Davis are eating up roster spots that can be better used.
Blasting game is a important part of the run game. He was active because he was better.
Mm-hmm.
They like him. He's a good lead blocker. So I mean, he may think that, but the coaches don't. You're going to have 6 wide receivers. Who's better? Who are you going to have instead of Velas?
Yeah.
And so I mean, I could argue every one of those. You're not going to replace a player unless you got somebody better. Now, Nate Davis is here for one reason right now: his contract. They aren't going to cut him. Okay, because he's got guaranteed money, and it could screw up their cap for the rest of the year. You don't want to do that, so you got him. So that and that, it ends up being, a bad deal on Ryan Pohl's part. He hadn't had many, but him and Claypool were not good ones. Most of the others he's done a pretty good job on.
No GM bats 1,000 in terms of transactions they make. Do you think there's a possibility that a team that is in desperate need of veteran offensive line help could call the Bears and say, I'll give you a 7th round pick for Nate Davis, or I'll give you my 6th and you send me Nate and I'll send you a 7th. So that way you can move up the 7th to the 6th. You think that's possible?
Anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Likely?
No.
You got to be, I mean, you got to be, he hadn't played good. Yeah, and my own personal opinion, and again, nobody has said this to me. To me, I've said before, why do guys bust? Biggest reason guys bust, because of poor football character. I think what it gets down to is he doesn't have good football character. He might have, now, granted he had the personal problem last year, but the play is carried over to this year. And so now, to me, it's like, okay, I got my money. Fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid that might be happening. Yeah. Berlissimo says, although I put 4 minutes of game footage from the end zone view on my YouTube, you're welcome to use it with attribution. Berlissimo has a YouTube channel that everyone should be subscribing to. He's on tape, as well as just about anyone that I've seen. The YouTube footage that he's talking about is stuff that he shot himself from the end zone. Thank you very much, Berlissimo. I'll probably take you up on that offer for tomorrow night's show before 55. Really appreciate that. Let's see what else we got here in terms of questions and thoughts. Matthew Fucisi says, I can't wait for that Washington game. People will see the difference between what CW is doing and what JD is doing. Gotta admit that this game has to be flexed. Probably not. It won't be flexed to Sunday Night Football, but it should be flexed
too early.
noon game.
The little chat I have on Twitter with about 12 guys are saying they got to flex it to Sunday night. I do not think there's ever been a game in October flexed to Sunday night.
Yeah.
That they wait until the second half of November.
Yeah.
Before they do that.
But it'll be probably flexed to the late afternoon game.
It very well could be. It depends who has the doubleheader game. Is it now? Because I looked at the schedule briefly, and it's on CBS. Even though it's 2 NFC teams, it's on CBS. So CBS may be the designated doubleheader week. There are a couple late Fox games. If they are going to change it, they'll probably do it this week.
Yeah, right.
And announce it. All you got to do is change your flight and make sure you can get out of the hotel a little later. But aside from that, there's no real change involved. So, it's it'll be interesting, but I do not expect them to be playing Sunday night.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And by the way, Berlismo says that this offense has the improvements have largely been in line with the adaptations Waldron has made between what he tried to do in weeks 1 and 3 than what he has changed to in weeks 3 and 6 under center, far more pre-snap motions and exchanges. Yeah, speaking of that, Greg, I wanted to talk to you about some of the coaching going on in the National Football League. Start with Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said, "I'm definitely not making a coaching change," and he scolded a reporter who dared to ask that. What do you think about the coaching in Dallas? Because that team came out against the Detroit Lions and looked like they didn't want to match machismo with machismo. In fact, there was no machismo on the part of the Dallas Cowboys.
To make a coaching change, you got to have somebody on the staff that's ready to step up and be a interim head coach. Now, I read Gary Myers, who's now retired, who wrote for, I think, the New York Daily News.
Yeah, New York Daily News.
He goes, they must be real close to giving Belichick the call. And I felt like, and I've known Gary because, I worked in New York. It's like saying, he can't do that. You can't make Bill. I mean, you could, but you still got to go do a coaching search next year. He is an interim head coach. And why would Belichick put himself into that situation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got the situation in New York with Albrecht taking over for Saleh, which is another topic I want you to comment on, that whole firing with the New York Jets. And does that just seem like
he should have fired himself? Give me 1 second. My dog wants to get out of here real quick.
Absolutely. Florida Bears fan says, "We don't care about the Dallas Cowboys. Lions kick their ass." I agree. I just feel like a coach like Mike McCarthy, who has always been kind of referred to as a finesse coach. You go up against a coach like Dan Campbell, who is proclaimed he wants to, kick you in the kneecaps and stuff. Greg, I was just saying that, Mike McCarthy has always been considered a finesse coach, West Coast offense style. And then you go up against a Dan Campbell who is telling his players, kick them in the kneecaps, kick them in the groin, do whatever. And that, to me, you're starting out at a disadvantage. Finesse teams are successful when they also have that killer instinct. And the Cowboys certainly didn't have that yesterday.
No, but again, I mean, it's always good when Dallas loses because they put the camera on Jerry Jones more than any other owner in the league. Put it this way, they put the camera on Jerry Jones than all the other owners put together. More, I mean, they're always you see him and you see Kraft from New England. You don't see photographs of the other guys at all.
True. Who is the worst owner, badass warthog? Ass Jerry Jones or Woody Johnson? That's a good one.
No, actually, Jerry has done some great things for the league.
Oh, yeah.
The league makes as much money as they do because of
Yes.
Jerry Jones. He was way ahead of the other owners as far as marketing and things like that. So you got to take your hat off to him for that. He's also become a lot more patient. In years ago, he probably would have fired McCarthy a while ago. Woody, part of Saleh getting blamed a lot for Woody's suggestion, so to speak. Aaron Rodgers was Woody.
Oh, look at that.
So, then the knucklehead that was the offensive coordinator. I can't think of his name. That was Aaron Rodgers.
Hackett. Nick Hackett.
Who's terrible. I mean, he's been terrible everywhere. When he was at Green Bay, he had the title, but he didn't call plays. He called plays when he was at Buffalo. He was horrible. I think at one other place that he was horrible. He was horrible as a head coach. He's been demoted. He's just got a title right now. He's collecting a paycheck.
It's really embarrassing.
He's probably still getting paid from Denver. So, I mean, the Jets probably aren't even paying Denver is.
Yeah.
Because he had time left on that contract. But so I don't know if it's all Salah. I used to have a real good friend work in that front office. He's no longer there. I know Joe Douglas well, but I don't know Joe Douglas well enough to call up and say, what the hell's going on? You know, I wouldn't do that. Joe is a good guy, and he's a very, very, very good evaluator, and he's been brought up well in the business. Ozzie Newsome, Howie Roseman, you know, people that he's worked for. But I think a lot of that isn't just his stuff. It's what ownership wants to do. And I could be totally off base on this. So I'm guessing. But it'll be interesting how the Jets come out and play tonight with an interim head coach. Generally, that'll fire up the team at least for a little while. And from the standpoint of play calling, it'll be an advantage for the Jets, at least at first, because you got a guy that hasn't called plays who's going to be calling plays, and you don't know what the hell they're going to do.
It's a mystery. Berlismo says, although those Raider fans who were crowing about how it wasn't Luke Getsy, it was Justin Fields, are finding out every single week how bad Getsy is. Have you had a chance to look at the Raiders offense? And if so, Greg, do you have a comment about them?
No, I haven't. Yesterday I watched one game, and that was the Bears game. That's it. I watched a little bit of the Detroit-Dallas game.
Did you see any college football this weekend?
Oh, a ton.
Who Sparta's asking me, should be asking you, who is in the lead for the Heisman? Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, the running back from Boise State?
I don't know how long he's out.
Yeah, if he can play and play at a high level, Hunter has to be the lead. But this kid, Genty from Boise State, the running back, is having a phenomenal season.
He's electric. What hurts him is he plays at Boise.
Yeah.
You know, as compared to a Power 4 school. Cam Ward, I've always liked Cam Ward. I thought he was going to come out last year. Wait a minute. I got to let him outside now.
Sure thing.
Okay, just a second.
No problem. Got to take care of that dog, because if not, he'll bite somebody in the groin. He'll take it out on somebody else, not his owner. Yeah, Berlismo says Ashton Genty is the Boise State running back, and he really is phenomenal. I mean, how tall is he, guys? Anyone have an idea? Because he looks like he's 5'9", 5'10", but that doesn't matter. He plays with such power and speed. You know, the way he bounces off of backs. I sometimes use the comparison to Walter Payton. Not saying he's going to have a Walter Payton type career, but the style is similar. Power, speed, and just a will to win. This Genty kid is unbelievable. What were we talking about, Greg? Forgot.
I don't know. My dog isn't feeling good, so he's already thrown up in here while I've done this.
Oh,
so
well, we'll go another couple minutes.
No, it's all right. Clean it up.
Okay.
We'll get done.
Okay. You know, my dog is not feeling well either, but he's 16 years old, so to be expected. How old is your dog? He's got to be around 7 or 8?
8.5.
8.5. Look at that. Interesting. By the way, Ashton Genty is 5'9", 215 pounds. Thank you,
I don't
Eddie.
even know if he's 5'9", but yeah, no, he's good.
Yeah.
A good back. I know we're talking about Cam Ward. Cam Ward, you know, he's got a better supporting cast than he had at Washington State. He's a good player. I thought he would have been if he had come out last year, and originally was going to, then something happened, probably a huge NIL deal for Miami came along, and he decided to transfer. because he's like a 6-year guy now, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't bother me that much for a quarterback because they're getting play time. They're getting snaps. So, he was a 3-year starter at Washington State. He doesn't have a special arm. He's got a good enough arm, but he's mobile. He thinks well. He sees the field well. He's accurate. He just, playing up in the Pacific Northwest, he didn't get, and being the ugly stepchild of the University of Washington when he was at Washington State, probably doesn't get the notoriety that he deserved. You'll get a little bit more at Miami, but shit, he plays good every week.
Lisa was asking, Greg, have you heard any rumors about the Miami Dolphins and Tyson? I'm assuming he's talking about Tyson Clable, the offensive lineman down at
No, I'm talking about Bagent.
Oh, Tyson Bagent.
I mean, anybody that ain't happening.
I doubt it. Who's going to be the backup?
Yeah. Why would you even think about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, if they say we'll give you a 2nd-round draft pick, are you going to start thinking about it?
No, they're not going to. Well, no, they're not going to. So that's a hypothetical that's not even worth thinking.
Not even
about.
Worth thinking about. Okay, now
it's you're one play away from having to play that guy, and you want to do something this season. And if something happens to Caleb, you're going to put in an undrafted free agent rookie? Because that's Austin Reed?
Yeah, no way. Because you're fighting for a playoff.
I don't know. I'm not trying to chastise Barrelissimo, but why would people even have that thought? That would be utter stupidity on the Bears' part to even think about it.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Barrelissimo. Stop doing that. All right, so I'm going to continue to do it. What about Quentin Nelson, left guard of the Colts, a player that I have loved since he was at Notre Dame, potentially being waved around if the Colts continue to lose before the trade. They won yesterday. So if they lose,
they're 3-3.
They're 3-3. But if they lose the next couple of games before the trade deadline, 2 or 3 games, could you see Quentin Nelson being dangled?
He's Chris's best offensive player.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, he's a perennial All-Pro, not Pro Bowler, All-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best in the game. So no.
And if he's going to be traded, it's going to be for a 1st-round draft pick plus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. There goes my dream. All right. Mike Ibsen had a question that I saved here. Greg, blocking from the running back position was a huge problem for the Bears last year. How does the tailback blocking look so far this season?
Well, last week Swift got called for holding on one pass block that he didn't hold on. And I think I explained it, but I'll do it again. He had his hands out like this.
Yeah.
And he went down low. And so I think the ref was thinking that he's going to put his arms around. He never did. So it wasn't a hold. At least he's not, I'm not going to say he's good at it. Johnson is probably the best guy at it. Hilbert can't pass block. So the pass blocking from the backs is, when Johnson's in there, it's decent. When Swift is in there, it's fair.
Okay. And lost my train of thought. Anyway, Greg, what do you make of the Lions after losing their Pro Bowl player, Aiden Hutchinson?
I think that's a wait and see.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, no team can afford to lose their best defensive player.
Exactly.
And he is really good. But what the effect is, who they got going in, how do they make up for the loss? I think we got to see how that works out. Does his loss take the wind out of the sails for Detroit, so to speak. And I don't think any of us can answer that yet. Because Detroit's playing, you can't take it away from them. They're playing good football. Much as I don't want to give them credit, you got to.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that the Lions have shown a proclivity, their defense has shown a proclivity to give up leads or to make games tighter in the second half because of defensive lapses. And now that Aiden Hutchinson is going to be out the entire season, I think it's going to impact their pressure on the quarterback, and we could now see a resumption of that defense collapsing in close games in the third or fourth quarter. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, could it? Yeah. Will it? We don't know.
We don't know. And that's for the better.
Who's going in? I don't know their roster well enough to say so-and-so is going to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing with the young secondary, and the young secondary needs a good pass rush.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're losing perhaps the best pass rusher in the league right now, at least this year. Mm-hmm. So, that all remains to be seen.
Levante wants to know, what are you going to be doing? What are your do's and don'ts in the bye week for the Bears?
Don't get in trouble.
Exactly. Stay out of trouble. Please. Don't do anything stupid.
No, I mean, the players are off. It isn't like it used to be. I remember, I'll give you an example. When Dan Reeves was the head coach of the Giants, he dangled a carrot in front of the players. I think we had a bye after the fourth or fifth game. And he said, he dangled the quarter. We have a winning record at the bye. I'll give you the whole week off. And we didn't. So we had to practice. They practiced 3 days. And then, it all has to do with the collective bargaining agreement. So then they allowed like a couple days of practice, and now you can't practice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. It's a week off for the players, and really they need it. But now guys who really are concerned about their bodies are going to be in the facility working out anyway.
Sure,
Some of them will go away and maybe take a 4 or 5 days off, go see some family or whatever. But other guys are going to be they're going to be in there working out, working on their weak points or whatever, because that's what guys with strong football character do.
Yeah, and the Bears have a lot of them. Darren was asking about Aiden Hutchinson's sack total. He does lead the Lions in sacks. He has 7.5, and Alim McNeil, the defensive tackle, has 2.5. So you can say those 2.5 are courtesy of Hutchinson's pressures. This is a major loss for the Lions in terms of pressuring the quarterback, because after Alim's 2.5, you got Levi 1.5, you got Malcolm 1, Trevor 1. Those are first names. This guy was the sack machine for the Detroit Lions. So we'll see, of course, what happens.
You had to game plan to stop him.
Yes.
Okay, so that takes that out now.
Right. And so McNeil will earn his money now if he can start from the defensive tackle position, start to still put pressure on the quarterback without Hutchinson, who is constantly double teamed, sometimes triple teamed. Don Burr, who is the resident Lions fan here, says Hutchinson being out is huge, but it's not a big deal. We only make a trade. Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, who knows? We have cap space, the fourth most.
No, wait a minute, time out. Don, why are these teams going to trade those guys? Come on, let people come up with this stuff, but they got to be available. And why is Cleveland going to trade their best defensive player? Why is Oakland going to trade their best defensive player? That doesn't make sense.
Well, let me, on his behalf, say, perhaps because those teams are selling, because they know they're not going to make the playoffs.
But you go back, there's still only a handful of trades at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. Even it's more. It's not like baseball.
Yeah, right.
The media says, are they buyers or sellers? No, that's not reality. That's not the way football works. Don't forget, guys got restructured contracts, and there's cap hits involved, things like that. There's a lot of little things there, and so it's. if there was anybody that could be available, it would be Hassan Riddick, not Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. I mean, that's you're smoking too much dope. You're smoking bad dope trying to think that.
Yeah. Do you think, as Jordan says, that Hassan Reddick might be a more logical trade possibility for the Lions?
I think if Riddick doesn't have a deal by the end of the day tonight or first thing in the morning with New York, he is a possibility for somebody.
Okay.
Because Drew tries to get. First of all, somebody had to talk sense into Riddick's head. Riddick was just, was fixated on a certain figure, and he wasn't going to get it. And he was already getting paid pretty good money. It's not like he was, they were getting him for nothing. I think he was making 14 or 15, and I haven't checked, so I don't know the exact figure, but it was in double-digit millions. So, but he wants a different deal. I think he's given up a ton of money on fines that are unwaivable. You're getting whacked with those. So all of training camp, you get hit for that. All of mini camp and stuff, you get hit for that. And the way the CBA works out is you cannot waive it at all. You got to pay those fines. So exactly how they'll work it out. I mean, you could give him an extension for the amount of money that he's paid in fines. Or something like that. But I think that Drew will have something done within 24 hours. And because I just know how Drew works. Yeah.
If you're trying to buy Reddick, would you want a player like that who apparently, reportedly, when he was traded to the Jets, he said, no problem, I'll finish off this year's contract. And now, he was offered a big deal by the Jets, refused it, fired his management and so forth. He seems like he would.
I don't know if he fired his management. They might have fired him.
Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right. That's the report I read. So if I'm a team, the Lions or whoever, I don't want this guy in my locker room. I'll figure out a way.
He's never been known as a bad guy in the locker room. Okay, but and what exactly went on? What kind of Jimmy Sexton was his main agent? Jimmy's a good agent, but there's a disconnect somewhere. And finally, Sexton and one of his partners said, screw it. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So Drew jumped in, which Drew does.
Yeah.
But sure. Drew is he can be hard to deal with sometimes, but he's a deal maker. And, he wants to make money on this guy. So he wants to get, he can't make money unless he makes a deal.
Right. Is he the type of guy who is good for a player? In other words, calm down, Hassan. We will take care of this. It'll be fine. I'm thinking back to when Tyreek Hill gets arrested and thrown to the ground. He's on the phone with Drew. Drew, I'm getting arrested. That's the first call you make. It's to your agent. And perhaps it's because he trusts Drew, will help him get out of this mess.
Drew knows how to play the game. And first of all, like in Miami, that's where Drew is from. He went to the University of Miami. He gets a lot of those guys. But he knows how to play the PR game.
Yeah, he's great at that. There's no doubt. Jordan says Drew handled Jalen Carter, Antonio Brown, and others. He can handle Reddick. Well, I'm not sure how well he did with Brown, and Carter is still a mystery, so I'm not sure that's an endorsement, Jordan.
Yeah, but he handled Carter after all the backlash from the traffic accident and the speeding and all that with Georgia after their national championship celebration party, I guess it was. So Drew's I've known Drew a long time, and personally, I like him. I get along with him really, really well. I've known him since he was a real young guy in the business. When I used to have to work out guys when I was with the Bears, and I had his guys, he was always very, very cooperative. So some people think he's other agents don't like him because he steals clients, but he's good at it. So
Sports Chicago stuff says Drew ain't nothing but a pimp. Well, I do love the way he negotiated that deal for DJ Moore. They didn't go in there with, we got to pay him to be the top wide receiver in the NFL. They were reasonable.
See what happened though? When Drew comes to town, deals get made.
Yeah, right.
Drew came to town, a deal got made. And the same thing, that's why I said he's going to New York today. And so I expect something to get done within 48 hours. Either that or he's getting traded within 48 or 24 to 36 hours.
Very good. All right. Last question. We'll get you out of here. And I need to prepare for Mike North Advantage at 3 p.m. Central here on the Barroom Network. A couple of questions have come in about the draft. Top offensive lineman, and J2K just offered this one. Are there any potential draft prospects you would suggest to Bears fans to start paying attention to? As for the offensive linemen, there's those two kids out of LSU, Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Danny Shimon has
both tackles. One could end up being a guard. The left tackle at Texas, who some say might be the best left tackle in the draft, but he's listed as being 6'4", 320. Mm-hmm. So if he goes to the combine and he's 6'3.5", 6'3 3/4", he ain't a tackle anymore. He's a guard.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's if he's 6'4" or taller, because I've already written these guys for agents. That's what I say. If he measures 6'4" or taller, he'll be a tackle. If he's under 6'4", chances are he's going to be moved inside because people they want and obviously the arm length. They want height and length for the outside. There's a player, Tate Ratledge, the right guard for Georgia. He got hurt, played in game 3, but he really got hurt in game 2. Tried to play in game 3, couldn't play. Hasn't played since. Had a high ankle sprain, had that tightrope surgery, might be able to play in about another 2 weeks or something, maybe 3. He probably was a first-round pick before that happened. Now, maybe you get him in the second. Because first of all, guards generally, tackles go in the first round, not guards. Tackles that were in college. But this guy, was a guard. So, could he go in the first? Yeah, but he's missed a lot of time now. He's missed 3 full games. Mm-hmm. So it remains to be seen.
Yeah. So first round pick is probably going to be in the late teens, 20s, depending how the Bears do the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. I think you're going to have a top 5 in the second round with the Panthers. Mm-hmm. And then, who knows what the Bears pick's going to be like in the first and second because we don't know how they're going to finish. Could be in the 20s, could be in the teens. Right.
Greg, if the season were to end now, the Bears would be in first place in the NFC West. They have a better record than the San Francisco 49ers, who currently lead that division. They'd be tied in the NFC East and NFC South. Unfortunately, they're tied for last place in the NFC Central. So my final question to you is it given this division and the play of the 3 other teams, is it too unrealistic for us to be assured, to be confident that the Bears are making the playoffs this season?
I wasn't one of those who thought they were going to be a playoff team. I said 9-7, and I'm still 9-7. And that might be, it's going to get down to how well they play against the division foes the second half of the season. Mm-hmm. If they split, they're in good shape.
NFC North, sorry.
Yeah. What did I say?
I think I said NFC Central. I'm still stuck in those days.
I got one of my balls up there. It says NFC Central. Champion. My game ball.
That's what it should be called.
That's what it was. That was my first year here. That was 2001.
Outstanding. Greg, again, you brought it. Outstanding work. Great show. A lot of kudos in the chat. You and I, next week, are we going to take the week off or you want to do a show next Monday?
We're going to do a show, man.
I love it. I love it when this guy talks that way. We will be back here next Monday at 11 a.m. We'll talk about the NFL. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit more draft because I know some people already have their eyes on that. It's like Danny Shimon says, it's never too early to talk about the NFL draft.
No,
so,
I can put together a list of
that'd be great.
10 offensive, guys I've done. Like I did, and I can't pronounce his name. There's nobody heard of him. Defensive end from Boston College, but he leads the country in sacks. He's got 9. He's 6'2.5", 245 pounds, but guy can freaking play now. He looks like he can run.
Jeremy says, "Thanks for your time, Greg. We love you. It's tough love, though." Of course, Greg wouldn't want it any other way. Oh, and by the way, you and Swifty doing a show this week?
Yeah, we were supposed to do it Friday, and then what happened was, my wife is off a lot on Fridays. So she hits me Thursday night with, we got the grandkids coming over, and we got to do this, and this with them. They're off. They had a holiday for school for something, like a teacher's convention or something.
Yeah,
so it's like, I'm all planned, getting something ready to do a show, and then I find out I can't do it. So we were thinking about doing it Saturday, but there are some games that Swifty wanted to watch. So we'll just do it next week and the week after. We'll probably do 2 in a row.
All right. Make sure you are subscribed to the Swiss Sports Network and the Barlissimo's YouTube channel and all of our other podcast friends. We will see you here next week. Although, actually, I will be back here in just a couple of hours with Mike North. And thank you all for Greg Gabriel. I'm Aldo Gandia. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.